David Fine here from Keys Moths. This is a Wacky Worms video. Guys, it's been a little while since we've made some Wacky Worms videos, but we have a great series coming up for you. Today we're talking about the Tawny Emperor butterfly, Asterocampa clyton, and we're going to be focusing on subspecies Flora from South Florida, because that's the one we're working. The time I saw a Tawny Emperor, I was like a kid in sort of like on the northern edge of the rim of Lake Okeechobee in southern Florida. Maybe it's the border between South and Central Florida in the town of Okeechobee. There was a bunch of hackberry trees behind a restaurant, and I saw this beautiful butterfly there. I didn't know what it was, but I wound up catching it. It turns out to be the South Florida subspecies of the Tawny Emperor butterfly. The Tawny Emperor, Asterocampa clyton, feeds on hackberry or Celtis tree species. There's several different species that they'll feed on, and they have a pretty wide range. They live in pretty much the entire eastern United States, all the way through west to like North Dakota, south to western Arizona, and into Mexico. And so they have several different subspecies. If you go throughout their range, they look a little different. They're actually quite variable. They have different degrees of orange and brown coloration. Sexes are very, very different. They're dimorphic. Females are much larger than the males. Males are tinier, and they have a much different wing shape. We'll show you some images of that here. Both sexes are orange, mostly orange with black spots, and there's varying degrees of light orange, dark orange, some yellow, some brown, even some black coloration in some of the northern populations. Down here in South Florida, our specimens are really just bright orange, and they're actually a little bit larger, from my understanding, than some of the subspecies in the rest of the United States. The wingspan on the male is probably just under 2 inches, probably 1 3/4 inch. The females can be up to 2 to 2.5 inches wingspan and are considerably larger. In fact, if you were to look at them side by side, you might be able to tell they're related, but one might think, if you're uneducated, that these were two completely different species. They look very, very different in their wing shape. Let's start with the life cycle of the Tawny Emperor butterfly. The first thing that is probably one of the best known characteristics of this species is that the female has a very unique gift and unique skill. This thing lays eggs in massive clusters, and lays eggs in a cluster in the shape of a pyramid. And anywhere between 75 and 150 eggs can be laid in a pyramid, and the female will actually lay a pretty close to a perfect square foundation and just go up from there, and it makes like a four-sided pyramid. It's really, really cool. I couldn't believe it the first time I saw a butterfly egg pyramid. This Tawny Emperor does that. In fact, I don't know of another species that makes that type of shape in their egg clusters. Eggs are cream colored, like I said, laid in large clusters on probably a little bit more mature leaves or even on the bark of the hackberry trees. After a few days, the eggs will turn orange in color, and then they hatch. The caterpillars are gregarious in nature. They feed in clusters, large clusters, up until about 3rd or 4th instar. Then they start going off on their own after that. But I call them teddy bears. I call them teddy bears because the caterpillar has this really, really cute head capsule that looks like it has little teddy bear ears, and it's just the scoli of the head capsule. But just the way it looks, I think it looks like a teddy bear, so it reminds me of. Caterpillars are green, yellow, and white stripes. As they get older, they get more green colored. And like I said, they will travel, or as they get older, they'll become a little bit more solitary. When the caterpillar is threatened, they actually plant their face, their head capsule, flat against the leaf, almost to like try to hide their face from the predator. I'm not sure what that does, but it keeps, they just face plant into the leaf. It's pretty cute how they do that. Caterpillars are not picky on what type of foliage they'll eat. They'll eat the new leaves and all the way to some of the older leaves, whereas their cousin, the hackberry butterfly, they only like new leaves. Pretty cool. Now, There was only one brood a year of this species in most of the northern parts of the range. Down here in South Florida, we can have up to 3 broods. And later on in the year, the caterpillars that are around as the fall starts to, kind of come around, the colder months start to come around, the leaves start to get like wilted and brown, and the hackberry trees shed their leaves. What the caterpillars will do is they will actually hibernate, and they'll turn, and this actually happened to me as I'm raising them in captivity, the caterpillars will actually start to turn yellow or brown, and they'll create a hibernaculum, like this little tent where like up to 15 or 20 caterpillars will all hibernate together until the conditions change and the tree puts out new growth, and it's time to start feeding again. So caterpillars will actually hibernate through the winter if they get caught off guard by an unseasonal cold snap. The chrysalis is usually solitary. It's like a little tiny green pill with 2 little horns off the front. I found a wild chrysalis one time. The reason I found that wild chrysalis is because I heard it twitching. I was walking in a hackberry hammock, and all of a sudden I heard, and I looked up, and there was a chrysalis just going crazy. It was disturbed, and it just started vibrating, and I found the chrysalis and brought it home. It turned out to be a beautiful male specimen. And but they look almost identical to the hackberry butterfly chrysalis. I've had them side by side before. Very, very difficult to tell apart. Male and female chrysalis are the same size, even though the male hatches out of the chrysalis and is a lot smaller than the female. It's kind of interesting how the size of the chrysalis does not necessarily correlate to the size of the adult. Adult butterflies do not feed on flowers. In fact, they feed on sap, tree sap. They'll eat fruit. They'll eat dung. They'll eat carrion. I like using bananas and apples in my fruit mixture, a little bit of molasses, some sugar, have it ferment, and you'll attract tawny emperors all day, but they will not go to flowers. Pretty interesting. They live up in the canopies, so you're not going to really see them unless you're looking up. They don't come down to the ground unless there is something like rotting fruit on the ground or dung or something like that where they're coming down to feed. But typically, they're living up in the canopies, and they're not really the most common thing to see. So they're around. They're actually a pretty common butterfly throughout their range, but they're pretty evasive. They're up in the canopies, and catching them can be quite difficult. I like to use bait traps. I've got plenty of videos on bait trapping for this species and others like it. So if you want to check out how to catch them with bait traps to do a breeding project such as this, check out some of my bait trapping videos as we bait trap around the rim of Lake Okeechobee in South Central Florida. And we get into some cool bugs there. So guys, that's about all we have on the tawny emperor. Hope you enjoyed this video. It's been a blast dealing with this species. We were able to raise several hundred of them in captivity just on cuttings, this past year, which was a pretty cool thing to do. But guys, like, subscribe, and share. It helps out our channel. Stay tuned for more Wacky Worms videos, and we'll get some more cool South Florida butterflies and moths videos for you to see, so you can learn about these creatures too. So take care. See you soon. Let's get out there and enjoy South Florida. Bye now.